Indian Veterinary Research Institute, Izzat Nagar, Bareilly, UP. He is a leader of research team dedicated to understand the molecular epidemiology of emergence of antimicrobial resistance in livestock animals. He is heading several national and international projects addressing AMR in veterinary sector. He chaired many scientific activities organized by Agriculture Ministry, Government of India. He has authored and co-authored more than 200 publications, having more than 1,780 citations, 22H index, 52 I10 index. His recent research projects include NHEP CAAST project on development of antibiotic alternative therapies for mastitis and enteropathogens, led faculty 2019 to 2023, epidemiology of emergence of antimicrobial drug resistance in bacteria of veterinary clinical importance from IVR Izzat Nagar 2016 to 2019 as a PI. Then development role of spoilage organisms and pathogens of public health significance in foods of animal origin from IVRI Izzat Nagar from 2014 to 17 as co-PI, in which PI was Dr. R.K. Agarwal. Then inter-institutional project, that is National Institute of Natural Resins and Gums from Namkin, Ranchi, intrinsic chemical variability, amino acid profiling, and antibacterial activity of Indian gum from different agro Siddiqui. Then studies on emergence of high-level drug-resistant bacteria in equines and their environment. NRC on equines, Hisar, from July 2006 to 2007 as principal investigator. His published work include 15 reviews, 75 research papers in peer-reviewed international journals, and 98 in Indian science journals, 12 chapters in books, online publications, research articles, chapters on internet, that is web publications up to 11, publication in internet journals up to 22, invited expert lectures and lead papers up to 42. His other publications include 4 Hindi popular articles, 77 blogs, 8 posters, 4 folders, and 2 policy drafts, that is antimicrobial chemotherapy in veterinary practice and vaccine and vaccination policy for animals. Over to Chairman, sir.
Thank you for the introduction, and I'd like to request Dr. Bhojraj Singh to please start his presentation.
Good afternoon to all participants and organizers for providing me the opportunity. I thank them all. And in my presentation, I will try to brief about epidemiological determinants of COVID-19. And probably I will try to share my presentation just now. Share screen. So may I audible to all? Chairman sir?
Yes, you are audible, but your presentation is not seen.
This COVID-19, you have heard 2 speakers earlier about different aspects. Now I will be talking about epidemiology. Understanding epidemiology is very important to institute control measures. Until unless we understand the determinants of its origin, its spread, its mortality, its morbidity, its disease extent in different people, you cannot take up any control measure in true spirit. So I describe this disease as elusive as an epidemiologist because epidemiology of this disease is not understood very well, and it appears to be more a political disaster or disease of diagnosis because we have been flooded with daily data that this many cases are coming today from this village, from that country, this country, and this is creating a very different kind of environment, which is always not good for handling a disease.
Sir, your slide is not visible.
Can you see the slides?
No, sir, no, not coming.
No, just
Your slides are not seen. I told you earlier also.
Share screen. So now visible?
Now visible. You do the full screen. Yeah, no, it's fine. Absolutely fine.
So this, I will be talking about this disease in respect to its epidemiology only, and not with other aspects. So you can see that how we are feared of COVID-19. In India, till now, there are about 11 lakh cases. And you see that per million deaths in India till now are 20 only, 20 per million. And it is certainly going to very high by the end of December or by the end of next March. But you see that the food deficiency, even more people have died due to hunger in last 6 months than COVID itself. And you can see the impact of cardiovascular diseases. It is again, more than 100 times more detrimental or more lethal than the COVID itself. And at international level also you see that daily deaths due to this cardiovascular disorder and so many other diseases, they are much, much higher. And digestive diseases, they are almost causing as many diseases, as many deaths daily as this COVID-19 is causing. So deaths by COVID-19 till in last 6 months are around 6 lakh. That is, and you can imagine that even 48,000, more than 48,000 people die daily due to cardiovascular disorder. So what is the reason we are so much feared of this disease? When there is cardiovascular disorder, you have heart attack, you have no time to even to talk with anyone or to even to write your will or wish. And COVID is certainly providing you certainly a few days, even if it is lethal. But you are so much feared with COVID, not with the other diseases. Even you see the malaria is killing 40 people out of 1 million in India every year, which probably this COVID is not going to kill, but we are not feared of that. So why we are feared? People have said that my earlier speaker was saying that if mortality is around 0.1%, case fatality is 0.1%, we should not fear of the COVID. But the study has revealed that it is 0.13% only. So what is the reason why we are so much feared? It is due to so many factors. You can understand that Every day you are fed with so many news channels and newspapers and on internet that this many people have died today, this many got sick, and in your vicinity so many people are sick. But nobody is saying that, nobody is counting the people dying due to other more detrimental, more lethal diseases. And what may be the reason behind this hype of COVID? Certainly, COVID is a emerging disease or has caused a pandemic, but in my view, it is not such a disease to make you fearsome to the extent that you stop living a normal life. I say this is the COVID mania. We have become maniac of the figures. We are looking daily. About 27,000 people in India died due to COVID in last 6 months. And how many more may die? It may reach to 100,000 or 1 lakh. And about 0.6 million died at the global level, but at global level we can see some million or 2 million deaths. Have you ever thought that in India 15 million people suffer from malaria every year? And 5 million, and this 50 million cases are there of filaria. Every year 100 million people die due to dengue globally. Tuberculosis, a disease of poor, kills 1.5 million people worldwide with 6.4 million cases every year. In India, every year 4,40,000 people, that is 1,205 people die daily due to tuberculosis. Is it not an alarming figure? But we are not frightened of that tuberculosis. We are not frightened of dengue or malaria. In India, every year more than 2,30,000 people commit suicide, where there is no scope of anything to save those people. But no one cared. Have you or the media or the global leaders have worried about those people? Probably not, because they are poor people. And pharmaceutical markets for all these diseases are already well established. And you know that everyone needs to progress. Pharmaceuticals and global leaders also need to progress. How to progress? Unless they will not create another big problem, another big hype, how they can progress? So we are fighting with COVID at global level because it is declared pandemic, and it is really a pandemic, have killed lot many people. So, but we are fighting with unknown. We do not know that what is the lineage of this virus. This is certainly not a novel virus. It has almost 90% homology with already existing coronaviruses, but we do not know the lineage from where it has come. Either it was animal or it was created artificially, or it is a naturally originated mutant virus. And we do not know the address from where it has come and from where it is. Today, not exactly today, yesterday, ICMR has declared that in India now it has, COVID-19 has reached into a community spread stage, that is stage 3. That means we will not be knowing its typical address from where it is coming. So we have only data to create panic. We have lot of data, and you will surprise that within last 6 months, there are 67,000 publications, scientific publication. I do not know what kind of science there is, but they are there on COVID. So why there are so many? Probably none of the disease in the past history have created so much panic to create so much publications. Why it is there? Panic is certainly with motive. And what may be the motive? Economic and political gains, to whom I don't know. But there is certainly advantage of individuals, not of masses. Masses are under fear, masses are under panic, and masses are fooled as ever before with this disease also. Overview of epidemiology of COVID-19. It is, as I have told, it is very blurred because epidemiology has been ignored since very first day. Non-epidemiological data is flooded, and these are just numbers. Several epidemiologists have told in past that these numbers are going to harm the control strategies globally. The rho value, that is rate of spread. In India, when it started, it was estimated 3.7, and now it is estimated around 1.5, and in globally different countries, it ranged between 1.5 to 6.7, and similarly the morbidity, it is not yet known because we have not done it systematically. We have targeted testing. So targeted testing cannot tell us the real morbidity. It may be, it has been reported from different places from 0.0003% to 3.7%. And on a global average, it is 0.38%. So that means out of 1,000 people, there is chance that less than 4 will fall sick. And mortality, you can see it is very much skewed. In some of the countries, it is 1 or less than 1, and in some of the countries, it is more than 800 per million. But globally, it is around 0.015%. That means those people who are getting sick, there is chance that out of 1,000, only 1.5 may die. CFR, that is how many people who have recovered and became healthy, and how many have died out of those, that figure is also very much biased. If we see globally, it varies from 0 to 36.2%, and on an average 6.6%. Herd immunity. People have talked a lot about herd immunity, and people said that it is going to protect us in long run, but it is elusive. Sweden and California studies have done some systematic studies to determine the herd immunity after because in California and Sweden almost the epidemic is in last stage, and now they are in stage when they can judge for the herd immunity, and they have found that only 5 to 17% people have developed protective antibody titers, and those antibody titers, they are vanishing very fast. That is less than 3 months. More than 80% people become susceptible again after 3 months of getting disease. So how you are going to be protected with herd immunity? It is certainly going to be a very, very big point of dispute. Treatment. Several treatments have come from different corners of the medical and non-medical people, and you can see that many have been tried in India. And protection, certainly masks, social distancing, immune boosters, tonic from Dadima to Nanima, and Yogi and Babas, they have provided so many advice time and again. And vaccines, they are coming soon. Certainly they will be there within next 6 months. But who knows, when the natural infection is not able to protect more than 80% population for more than 3 months, how long the vaccine will be able to do that? Nobody knows. Epidemiological studies on COVID-19 are few. That's why you cannot say that what are the real determinants of the disease. That's why this talk is on misunderstood determinants. It is whatsoever studies are there, they are targeted mostly for development of future vaccine or clinical trials towards new drugs or repurposing of old drugs. Most of the studies are either ecological, clinico-pathological, clinical trials of already disputed medicines like hydrochloroquine has been boasted at very different levels, but WHO recently said that it has no understood benefit. Similarly, the ivermectin, it has been proposed. Several viral, antiviral drugs, my previous speaker told about remdesivir and other antiviral drugs, but they can work only when we are giving those in time. And how many people can afford that? You know that what is the cost of these drugs, these antiviral drugs. Probably not a single average Indian will be able to have the full treatment of those. Clinical trial of already disputed medicine have been done. Vaccine trials in all are in infancy, but every vaccine trial conducting organization or every vaccine developing agency is claiming that they are very near to development or release of the vaccine. Some studies claim to determine several modulators and determinants of diseases. But in my view, they are just outcome of play with non-epidemiological data, thinking epidemiologically without having epidemiological data. And this appears to be a play in leisure time provided by lockdowns. Like we have thought that median age of population, BCG vaccination, even religion, several comorbidities, socioeconomic factors, and so on, lot many things. So determinants of COVID-19, the real determinants, which appears to me, because we do not know the epidemiological determinants, so other determinants are there. Politics at all levels, starting from non-political WHO to village level, everyone is trying to get to extract something out of the COVID-19. And panic is another important thing, that is tablighi to mass dislocation we have observed in churches and mosques, temple and gurdwaras, and Satan to God. Everybody is engaged in creating the panic. Birth to death, you cannot attend birth parties, you cannot attend the funerals, you cannot do the marriage, you are devoid of so many social interactions. In name of the physical distancing, which is required, social distancing is not at all required. We require the physical distancing, we require the physical barriers like mask and a distance. But we have created the social distance, which is going to harm the society in more dangerous way than we expect. It is game of numbers. Don't know for what is, that is why it is political disease or disease of targeted testing. I have named several diseases which are killing many more people, but have you ever seen any site which is saying that this many people have died today by TB in this village, in that city, or in India, or in world? But if they will start to show those, then it will become a minor problem. Information or misinformation war in scientific platform, in social media, and political media, socio-economic and socio-political platform, everywhere. Everyone is trying to market their ideas, and market has been made ready to accept just any vaccine, any medicine, either effective for a month or 2 months, 3 months, or not at all. You can understand the politics of vaccine by the fact that most of the vaccines which are cleared by DCGI or other FDA, they are thought to protect, they are thought to be very good if they protect 70% to 90% people from a disease. But do you know how many people are getting sick of this COVID-19? Hardly 4%, 3% people are going to fall sick. And when you will get the vaccine and those 4 or 5% will be falling sick, people will say that, no, vaccine is very effective. This is the normal failure rate of vaccine. So every vaccine is going to be a successful venture pharmaceuticals, they are going to be rich and rich, and either they are public or private. Every pharmaceutical is engaged in production of vaccine, a deemed vaccine which is going to earn a lot at every level, local, vocal, and becoming global. Allopathic, homeopathic, Ayush, Unani, Chinese, African, decoctum, yoga, and decoctum of all of these, and infusion of all different kind of medicine. They have been recommended by, and they have been marketed by different kind of pharmaceuticals. So this is the game which is going on with us. Misunderstood determinants of COVID-19 etiology. It is always a controversy over its origin. So I am not going to deal with that. Spread and expansion. It is another controversial thing about which WHO has confused, and several, even you can see that yesterday only ICMR declared that it is now in community mode of spread. No, it was not earlier. And I don't know what was their real definition of community spread. Determinants, we will be discussing about determinants of morbidity, mortality, and CFR. Spread of COVID-19. This is a highly communicable disease. At some places, 6.7 is the raw value, that is measure of communicability, and either it is spread through animal, food, meat, vegetables, fruits, environment. Nobody knows. But why it should not spread? It is there in water. So how it cannot spread from water? It survived for weeks in sick cabins, which was holding the sick people. But it is said that it survived for not more than 3 days on different surfaces. So how it was surviving in sick cabins? So these are all confusions created in our mind. The virus is detected in water and sewage, but everybody say that it is not spreading through the water. Why it cannot spread? It is the coronaviruses, they are all enteric viruses. They can enter from our intestine. So why this novel corona cannot? It can. Several conflicting statements at level of WHO and different disease controlling institutions have created more and more confusion. All good attempts have been made by most powerful countries and their leaders to spread the disease globally with import and export of potential spreaders. When we were knowing that this disease is spreading like this, why we were importing time and again, why we were allowing people to move, why we have not planned to contain their movement, when movement is the major cause of global spread of this disease. So politics of COVID-19 transmission, this is not spread through human to human contact. It was the first statement of WHO. But now we know that how it is spreading. Infected people can be contagious. Everybody is saying, but on 8th June, WHO said that there is no fear from the asymptomatic carriers or asymptomatically infected individuals. What is this? Earlier they were infective, and several models have been created to create the panic among the mind of people that just touch can spread. The touch of a asymptomatic patient can spread the disease. It is said that it is not a zoonotic. Animals have no role in disease spread, though cases of cats, dogs, tigers, monkeys suffering from COVID are reported. And in many of the European countries, the 6 lakh mink have been ordered to be killed because they have spread the disease to the farmers. So why it was said from very early date that it is not a zoonotic disease without knowing the reality? That means we were trying to spread the ill knowledge, or we can say the information which was not really existing. Iceberg of COVID-19, except a few isolated attempts, no country has attempted to determine the disease iceberg required to estimate the required effort to contain the disease. When we do not know what is the size of disease, what is the size of our enemy, how we can plan to fight with it. We are fighting with tip of COVID-19 iceberg and destined to crack down because we do not know the reality. Direct losses due to COVID-19 in form of sick and dead is only tip of the iceberg of economic losses due to this disease. It is going to be a big economic disease rather than the lethal disease. It is going to paralyze many of the economies, already paralyzed many people have become unemployed all over the globe. It may be killing in future billions of people due to our madness to save a million people. Everybody know that who are dying. More than 70% those have died due to COVID. They are having comorbidities. That means, and they have spent their productive life. We cannot save those people for long. They have to go. They have to leave us one day or tomorrow. This COVID is just cleansing that load which we are carrying. I am not against to provide the facilities to survive those people who are with comorbidities. But this disease is going to teach us the reality which Darwin tried, survival of the fittest. As the world is ruled mostly by those have enjoyed their productive life but want to rule till their end. They consider themselves endless. For those inhuman people, to save those inhuman people, we are trying to be human and showing the humanity, forgetting about the coming generations and poor of this world constituting more than 90% of the human population of globe. What will happen to them when there will be total economic paralysis? How many people will be dying? So you see the correlation of different determinants. This is the data which was extracted yesterday and analysis was redone. This has already been done by several people. The median age has been said to be very big determinant. The countries having the older population, more older population is said to have more number of cases, more number of deaths. So the correlation is very strong. But look what happens in 37 countries with median age less than 20 years. Mortality is much higher than in many of the countries. 9 of the countries which are having median age more than 40 years have mortality 5 deaths per million. But in 37 countries which have median age less than 20, there is mortality of 10 people per million. In India also, you see that there is the most people who have suffered from the disease, they belong to the age group of 30 to 40. So why it is so? And data is telling something else. Data is saying that more the age and more the sickness. So it is play of the statistics. Statistics see only the tip. It shows us the most attracting figure. That is attracting figure is that median age is associated with the high case fatality, high death rate, high case rate. But look at the Japan, one of the country which is having the most aged people, and there are only few deaths and few cases. Why it is so? Until unless we devour, we study that dilemma, we will not be able to control the disease. BCG, a mandatory vaccination. Many papers, I have read 7 papers yesterday only. I have also wrote 2 papers on this, that BCG is certainly protecting. and many of the countries has started vaccinating their health workers. And in India also, this trial has been started by ICMR orders. BCG, more the it gives BCG facts, they give more convincing. 181 countries with 89% of population, they hold only 61% of the cases and 45% of COVID-19 deaths. But why? Had we thought, because those countries which are using BCG, they are mostly poverty-driven countries. Testing is not that much. And in India, suppose we start testing every day, we are testing now only 3 lakh, and out of 3 lakh, we are getting some 30,000, 30 to 40,000 positive, means 10% positive. If we will start testing some 10 lakh, we will be having 1 lakh cases, maybe having 1 lakh cases daily. So everything will change. So these modulators or these determinants, they are not stable until unless we study the epidemiology in true sense. Sorry. You see the vaccination of other diseases. One paper I saw from USA, they told that polio vaccine, wheresoever it is more, there is more number of cases, more number of deaths, and it is not only with the polio, it is also this measles vaccine, hepatitis B vaccine, and Haemophilus influenzae vaccine, and DPT also, where there is more vaccination, more people are dying. But this is the correlation, like that if we say that those people who are wearing the shoe of more than number 9, they will be having sick. And probably this correlation will be very strong, because in most of the developed countries which have suffered with COVID in to a large extent, they have good size of people, and most of the people wear shoe size more than 9. So, but do you believe that shoe size is going to affect the outcome of the disease? So this kind of correlation analysis or this kind of regression analysis is just going to confuse us. And you can see that religion, people have tried to correlate with the religion, and you can see the death per million are more in Christians, less in Muslims, and in also more in people with following no religion. But either religion is having something. Yeah, people can say that hijab can protect. Hijab is a kind of mask. So it is mask, not the faith, which is protecting. So we have to think scientifically rather than religiously. Comorbidities. You see that TB, wheresoever more tuberculosis is there, more HIV/AIDS are there, more malaria is there, more cardiovascular diseases are there, there is less mortality, less number of cases. Why it is so? Until unless we try to understand these facts, though these are comorbidities affecting many different organs and certainly should cause more death due to COVID-19, but it is not. Neoplasm, that is associated with the more morbidity and more mortality, and people, most of the cancer specialists say or suggest to their patients that their patients may die due to COVID, not due to neoplasm in near future, that is in next 6 months. Many of them may die due to COVID, not due to neoplasm. But when there was no COVID, have you ever thought that we have tried to name the, suppose someone is having flu and also died due to heart attack. So we used to say heart attack is killing, but nowadays we are saying that COVID is killing. Similarly for diabetes, more diabetic people, diabetes 1 and 2, both have been associated with high case numbers and high number of positivity. Certainly death rate is not very high, but in India we have observed that death rate is more than 3.5 times higher in diabetic people than in normal people. Smoking, how it can protect when it harms the lung, how it can protect, but data is saying. So there is lot of confusion. COVID-19 and basic amenities and their indicators in the nations. You see more number of cases are there where there is healthy lifestyle, higher literacy rate and higher purchasing power. And wheresoever there is food deficiency, people are dying due to deficiency of food, there are less number of COVID cases. Do our lockdowns, they are not targeting to create that food deficiency or the poverty, or do this, I sometimes think that do lockdown is created to create poverty so that there should be less death due to COVID-19. It will be causing food deficiency, it will be reducing the purchasing power, it may affect the literacy rate. As you know, every college or university, everything is closed. And I don't know what is going on. And you people may think of these facts. I am putting the facts only. So what may be the cure? What may be the solutions? In my view, cure the panic. The disease will be cured. You have to be very justiceful. Live and let live. Like most of the less severe diseases, COVID-19 has to live on this earth for long. If not forever, it is going to live for long. So we have to accept it as cohabitant on the earth. Colonization of world as soon as possible, either using some less pathogenic or less contagious virus, more contagious, less pathogenic virus. We can wait for the nature to invent such virus, or the scientist can do it. As soon as we will have colonization, and it should be time and again, only then we will be protected, as immunity is not long lasting. So we have to get infection very frequently. Only then we will be, or we have to get the vaccine very frequently. Only then we will be able to get rid of the fear of the COVID-19. But we have to cure that panic. Treatment for viral diseases, we know that that is failing since ages. And if it is useful at all, it is not affordable for a large population. Respecting the nature and its forces, accepting the fact that we are not supreme. Yesterday, UN has said that we have developed a lot of science. We have very big achievements in science, but we failed utterly to understand the COVID. It is not my statement. Yesterday only, UN General Secretary has given that statement. And probably that's why we are failing. It is a political disaster. The best strategy is avoiding politicizing the numbers, targeted diagnostic testing and their results. If we will start this kind of diagnostic testing for each and every disease, even the malaria, even the tuberculosis, even the suicides, they can create bigger panic than this COVID has created. As it is also a disease of diagnosis, another important strategy is either stop diagnosis or stop public display of the numbers, now updated in real time every hour, and we are getting feared of those numbers. Displaying numbers appears to be political strategy to create panic among masses, to make them ready to accept any kind of treatment, any kind of vaccine. As one of the most important determinant of COVID-19 is information and misinformation war. So if we are not able to control this on social media, socio-political platform and print, and that is audio, video, media, we are not going to get rid of this panic and not going to get rid of COVID-19 also. So what are the epidemiological solutions? Through clinical observations, we know that most vulnerable population for COVID-19 morbidity and mortality is the aged people with underlying diseases or compromised immunity. So our target should be to save those vulnerable people rather than locking down each and everyone. We should lock down those vulnerable people. But how it is possible? It needs a big planning. In healthy population, young and adult, the disease is either unapparent or mild. Therefore, they should be allowed to free movement to work and spend leisure life or productive life and to have a herd immunity which can be created in this way.
Dr. Singh, Dr. Singh, Dr.
Yeah,
Singh.
it is the last slide,
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
And natural infections are better creators of immunity. And if they are not creating the immunity, how you can expect from the vaccine? So for solid immunity, time and again infection is much more required. Even after natural infections, immunity is vanishing fast. So we cannot rely much on vaccines. Though contradicted, the disease also spread asymptomatically infected people, thus their contact with vulnerable should be stopped. Educating people with reality, which is still blurred, may be other tool to control the disease rather than creating panic. So you see the tip of iceberg of the COVID-19. It is very little visible. And we are seeing the tip, and tip is just illusion of the reality. And that's the struggle which we are going to have is endless because we do not know the exact size of the problem. So I thank all the audience for patience, all the organizers to give me the opportunity to share my views, and specifically I want to thank Dr. Susma who contacted me to give this talk. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, Dr. Singh, for your excellent presentation, and you have raised very valid issues. And you have rightly pointed out that it is the survival of the fittest which ultimately matters. And many questions are there, I'm seeing there. But I think one question which just I like to ask, when some boy has asked regarding the use of mask, till when this mask will be used, he's asking.
Yeah, mask is the only solution. In 1918, when people were not knowing the utility of mask too much, in San Francisco, mask was the tool which protected from that detrimental disease which killed almost 1/3 of the population. So mask is certainly useful, but it is not the way that we should put mask all the time. We have to put mask only when we are going to visit someone or we are going to the place where there is not many people. So mask is not to be considered as compulsory all the time. My earlier speaker has told how to use the mask. Mask, if it is used improperly, it is not going to solve the problem.
Yeah, that's true. So I'd like to thank, first of all, the organizers, Dr. Sushma and others, for organizing this wonderful, these talks, and very wonderful informative lectures were there, starting from what Dr. Arora spoke on the fat infiltration in the liver, till the epidemiology, and very valid points have been raised, and it has been very educative and very helpful, especially for the youngsters to get an exposure. And I congratulate the organizers for thinking about it and organizing it, because COVID has totally changed and transformed our thinking and our lives. So in this era, you have thought of having this seminar, and you have got hold of so many wonderful speakers. That is very credible. My congratulations. And I hope that the session was, as I have seen the messages which are pouring in continuously in the chat box, that students are loving it and they are enjoying the talks. So thank you, and I hand over the mic to the organizers.
Thank you very much, Chairman Sir, for efficiently handling the question answers queries of the set, for giving such nice, informative, fruitful talk. Okay. Before we conclude, I would just like a speaker. Second speaker will be Professor Abbas Ali Menon, W. Muang. Fourth speaker will be Dr. Prashant Kumar. And fifth speaker will be Dr. Manzoor A. Lee. So that's all for today. Tomorrow again we'll meet at 2:30 p.m. for the second day of the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.